Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Office Hours, and today we have Dima with us. Hey, Dima, how you doing, man?
Hello, good to be back. Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Definitely been a while. What you been up to, man?
Wow, it's a good question. So many things. I've been just stumbling upon something really cool. I'll show a bit later on Twitter. You know,
All right. Um, Definitely. So today we have really Dima here. We're going to go over some new stuff, new-ish stuff, and also kind of going over the the Novo framework, basically going through all the onboarding process. Because although we really keep on putting and investing a lot of effort in making it as seamless as possible for new users, it's still good to have some sort of kind of visual aid, and it's something that um, if I don't know, someone would like to just kind of see how we envision that, you could just understand what is the logic behind kind of every line and every comment there, and basically just follow along with us, or maybe after the stream, like watching the recording, where you can understand like how we wanted it to work. And and this is kind of the bonus point that we really hope that you will act upon, is give us a feedback, like what would you think that we could improve or do just a bit differently, or what you would expect. So just keep that in mind. And before we going to really dive in, I actually, Dima, really want to ask you um, about something, or mainly interesting technology that you came across recently. Do you mind
yeah,
share?
yeah, it's a good question. Actually, not that recently. Maybe a few months back, and then kind of maybe not even new. It's
Hmm.
been for quite a while.
Yeah.
But Solid.js is kind of I've been deep diving a little bit more into this kind of framework, you can call it. Quite
Hmm.
like it, and we actually chose to use it for a new inbox component that we released just a while back. And
Hmm.
it's kind of, when we started with this, we had our challenges and so much things we wanted to solve in terms of the bundle size and their activity and the way we
Yeah.
build it in the maintenance and so far it's been quite a pleasure working with Solid, and we kind of been recently the ecosystem around it. Been recently adding some cool animations with the Solid Motion to the inbox component. So yeah, I think this one. And
Yeah. And
yeah,
what?
sorry.
So yeah. No, you wanted to say and then you kind of you
Yeah,
stopped
no,
there
I was
for.
thinking you should have put all of the cool stuff I've learned so far in one session. Then you won't invite me again. So I'm kind of
Yeah, sure. And yeah, definitely, I do remember that. Basically, we had Powell and George, I think, maybe not in the previous session, but in the session before, where we kind of had a deep dive into the inbox component development process. So, and there, basically, they put out and explained how the Solid.js was selected in a way to serve as the backbone and kind of the foundation for everything. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating and pretty interesting, and I hope that we could at least touch this a bit today,
yeah.
but we'll
Sounds
see.
sounds like a good blog post to me.
Yeah. So yeah, let's start by sharing your screen. So okay,
Yeah,
now yeah.
we
So
got
I
it.
hope that everybody can see Dima's screen right now. Yeah, it should be visible. Good.
All right, awesome. So, what we are going to do today is kind of going a little bit into a demo flow of basically using and kind of sending your first notification with Novo. And what I would love to do is basically, I've created here a sample project on our staging environment. Don't worry on the API key. This one is a test one, will be deleted. Um, So basically what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy paste out of our getting started page, kind of initializing a new project. We're going to use Next.js for this one. So I just copy pasted this one and I'm going to put it here. And what is going to happen here is basically, depending on my internet speed here, we are going to scaffold a new project that is going basically to put out quite a simple notification flow, which we can then inspect. Let's call this one an office hours project. Just giving us the project name. It's going to install some basic stuff, and I'm going to go over some of those dependencies in just a bit. I'm going to explain what we are getting installed here. And after this is going to be installed, basically we're going to see how can we create our first basically notification workflow. Let's give it just one moment to finish. My internet is doing quite good actually for today. And we have created our new project, and let's do the following, which is basically cd into it and running it. All right, cd run, and then we're just going to do npm run dev to bootstrap it. Again, I'm following the instructions from our main screen here. We have a project running on localhost 4000. What I'm going to do is basically open my cursor IDE, and I'm just showing off like all the cool kids doing now. Let's see, let's open this up. So we have our office hours project. I'm actually going to skip the project itself for now. So I'm just opening this to show it for the future. And then I'm going to copy basically the run studio command. And the run studio command, and I'm going to open this in a new terminal. Basically what it does is opens up a local environment, which is basically connected to the workflow we have locally, and allowing us to experiment, write code, write components, write the email interface, and then basically sync this to the Novo Cloud instance. So we see here an amazing GIF animation that was happening, which I spent way too much time optimizing. Probably no one will ever see it. But once the studio has opened, if we're actually automatically navigated to the localhost 2022, which is basically the studio interface, and we are already seeing that we have one workflow here. And if I click on this workflow, we actually see an email which is generated using React email out of the box in our first example. And we can also modify some things here. Let's say we want to modify our title. So let's do welcome to the office. And we can see that the information in the actual preview has been updated. And let's see how it all built and basically how this actually came to life. Let's open back the new project that we have just scaffolded. This is a typical Next.js project. And we have created here a folder called Novo. And then we have here the welcome onboarding email workflow, which is basically a simple definition of a workflow. So we can see here that we have a step and a workflow definition available here. So the workflow name is welcome onboarding email. If we are going back to the studio, we can see that this is actually the name of our workflow here, available just right here. And I can actually go and see what we have here inside. So here we defined something called step.email, and then we have the email definition. I can actually copy paste this one out, and let's say we want to do email to, right? And once I've done this, if I go back, we can actually automatically see that this email was added here on our local studio. So this is basically mirroring whatever is happening here on my IDE. Now, the way it works is that in the definition itself, we're actually defining, if we're looking at the actual step, so we can see that each step has some identifier right here. And then we also have basically a callback function that returns the step definition itself. So let's say it's a subject and a body, right? So if you're going back and I'm looking at the subject here, a successful test on Novo, this is basically the return value we are seeing out of this email step coming back. Now, in this particular email, we are using React email to actually render the welcome email itself. So in the step definition, we can see that we have something called here render email, which basically returns as the email body here. And we can see here basically a simple React email flow styled with Tailwind. And we can see some dynamic components that are rendered here. So we can have our H1 headings, we can have our buttons, right? And each button might have a text. So if we go back here, we can see that this particular button is the edit email button. And I'm going to change this to just to be, let's say, edit, right? So the way it works is that our email component is able to render a dynamic email content, and it's able to render some components right out of it. So basically, it knows how to render a specific button. We can actually extend this and add our own components here. So let's say we want to add some custom component that is a chart, or maybe some more complex logic we would love to do there, right? Part of this rendering, we are also performing some styling here. So this is just a typical, Tailwind classes list, and you can modify this. So let's say we want to extend the padding or change the text color or make the button not rounded. We can all do it right out of here. Now, one of the interesting things about this approach is basically it allows us to basically hide away some of the complexity behind the definition of the actual components, right? And provide our non-technical team members or somebody else from the team the ability to say, hey, you know what, I actually would love to add a button here, right? And let's say I'm adding a button and I've adjusted the button, and let's say here this is a new button, and then I would love to align this to the center, right? Behind the scenes, basically what happens, or maybe I want to delete this button because I didn't like it, right? So behind the scenes, what happens is basically this is the representation of the email itself, but the creation of the actual components and the definition of all the possibilities of what I can modify inside of the button is basically abstracted away in this render email function. And you can really do whatever you want to do, right? There is no kind of specific dictation. The only thing we require is basically returning an HTML back. We have customers who are using MGML, React email. There is a bunch of, if you're coming from the Vue ecosystem, there is Vue email. So anything that basically can render an HTML behind the scenes, we can accept as part of this particular email flow. Now, if you go back to the workflow definition, and we've seen here that we have here like, hey, let's do a step dot delay, right? And we can use here our autocomplete to kind of help us. And ChatGPT thinks he knows, but he doesn't. So like here, we having an ID, and we are serving a similar pattern here where basically we can say, hey, this step actually returns an amount of 1 and then unit of minutes. So, and let's say we want to execute the delay step before we are actually executing the email here. So if I save it, we can suddenly see that there is a delay that is going to wait for 1 minute and only then send an email, right? And we can do some also conditional stuff. So let's say we want to skip the execution of this particular delay, or maybe the email itself, right? Because we want to fetch something from our database and do some logic, and similarly can apply in the context of the email itself. So let's say we want to fetch some latest data from our database, or get something from the users and then use it as part of the actual email itself, right? So there's a lot of flexibility that is going on. We'll keep it for now as a simple step email here. So let's say we're happy with what we have created, and right now it's all running locally on our machine, right? We want to sync it basically to the dashboard.novo.co, which is basically the cloud version where we want to basically trigger the notifications, and this is where they will be living. Now we have this sync button that is available here, and we have multiple ways of syncing basically this local state back to our cloud system. The recommended way is going through something like GitHub Actions or our CLI. And then basically as part of your Git flow, what you would love to do is basically every change you're making inside of your workflow definitions, you're pushing this to your Git, and then once this push to Git, you basically trigger a GitHub action to say, hey, here is the latest version of our code, and then you can sync it. For the demo purposes, we're going to use basically the manual approach just to see how this works. And I'm going to copy here a tunnel URL out of the Studio CLI that has been created for us. This is a unique identifier we are creating for the testing environment, so you can put it here. And I'm going to do a manual sync. Now, once a manual sync has been performed, and I'm going to visit back basically the workflows page we're seeing here, we can see that we have our workflow available here right now, right? And let's say I am going to change the name of this workflow. So let's call it email 2, right? And then I'm going to sync again. I'm going to see basically the new email available to us, which is the email 2. So basically we synced the state of the code definition we had to the cloud environment. Now, when I'm going to visit this particular flow, I'm going to see a very similar experience, right, that I've just seen on my local environment, but currently it's actually running on our cloud interface. And this is where you can invite your team members to basically join, modify some of the changes. And let's say if I want to modify welcome to office hours from here, and I'm going to save this information, this is basically what's going to be used as part of the notification delivery, right? So I didn't have to make any code changes, essentially, to modify the structure of the email. Or let's say, hey, you know what? Actually, this particular text blob is not needed anymore, so I can delete it, and then I can go and save again. And this will be updated, and this is the email our users are going to receive. Now,
I have Dima, I have one question.
Yes.
I'm not sure like if we really encountered this type of request before or a question before, but for example, if the product person who is modifying the content here on the deployed version of the workflow, let's say, using the Novo dashboard, the dashboard environment, and they decided to change the variable for the title, for example.
Yeah.
The title here is not going, like before that, the developer is the one who configured and put what is going to be the default value of the title, for example.
Yeah.
But then it's being changed by, for example, the product person, but it's not aligned with the deployed workflow from the code perspective, right?
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways of doing this, right? So for example, if I'm looking at the actual deployed code, we can see that here we are actually, instead of hard coding the subject itself, right, we're returning a dynamic value. So in this case, the developer is saying, hey, you can put whatever you want in the subject, right, to the non-technical persona. The developer might also say, hey, this is a hard-coded subject, right? And if I'm going to save this one, you can see on the flow itself. So if I'm going back to the definition here, we can see that this is a hard-coded subject, right? And if I try to modify something here, nothing really will change, right? It still stays as this is a hard-coded subject. Now, if I do want to provide the control, right, to somebody from my team, I basically say, hey, instead of hard-coding some string here, I'm actually going to say, this is a controls.subject, right? And the definition of this control is actually using JSON schema here. And it's saying, hey, a subject is of type string, and this is the default value of the subject, right? And I can change the default value. Now, if I am in the dashboard, basically I'm saying, hey, you know what? I want to modify the default, and I'm saving it, right? Mm-hmm. All I'm basically doing is saying, hey, the subject now is not the default JSON schema value. This is what I have put here right now. Mm-hmm. And the developer can decide how much flexibility do you want to give, right, to somebody else. You can say, hey, this email is password reset, is extremely, sensitive to our business. We don't want anyone to accidentally break something here, but we want to expose maybe a little paragraph because we want to use this space to promote some of the new features we have released on the changelog, right?
So you a promotion section in the email or something.
Exactly, but you still kind of make sure that somebody accidentally doesn't break, something that is mission critical for your business, but still giving them the flexibility and kind of the ability to modify something out of this email, and maybe also other channels as well. And in some cases, you might want to say, hey, here's the components we allow you to use. You can create whatever you want with it. We don't intervene. And maybe for some other workflows, they're a bit more closed. So this is kind of depending on the use case, depending on the complexity of the actual generated component, you might want to expose or maybe have some variations. So let's say we want to have a button that has different types, right, or different types of headers, but still kind of giving the flexibility to our non-technical team members to actually modify whatever they want to modify on the actual. Yeah, so basically this is it, kind of, an end-to-end definition. Obviously kind of the whole triggering flow is happening either using one of our SDKs or directly from the dashboard here. We won't go into kind of all of the details. If somebody has specific questions, I'm happy to address them, but kind of, again, the full flow from working locally on my machine, syncing the information to our dashboard cloud, and then basically this is the live version of everything we're doing.
Now, I would like maybe just kind of to ask, in terms of best practices or the reasoning behind, for example, the management of the workflows, like why we encourage to deploy the workflows close to the app, or maybe even into the app instance, instead of, for example, manage the workflow separately and have a separate deployment.
Yeah, so it's really kind of boils down to how the companies or the products work with us, and kind of different companies have a bit of a different approach to this, right? The way we kind of see this is notifications are part of your application, right? When you're building a new feature, there is a notification associated to this. When you are extending or upgrading an existing feature, there is a notification that might be affected because of it, right? And the way we see this is notifications are tied to your product release cycles, right? So when you're launching a new feature, there is a notification flow that is part of this. So this is why we believe that, it makes a lot of sense to kind of keep your notification flow together with your CI/CD deployment, because what might happen is you will launch this amazing new feature on your cloud environment. Now you have to go to some UI to kind of update things. This is where this kind of the Git flow or the Git-based pushing mechanism really helps you kind of sync all of those things together in one place, and also keep you with version control, making sure that you are not breaking something. You can see the history of it, and kind of, again, using your ID and so on. One other big benefit is that because the user is actually controlling the runtime of the workflow, we can access some real-time data based on our database, and enrich some information just before we're sending the notification, or saying, hey, maybe we want to skip the execution of a step if this particular task has already been canceled or completed, right? We don't want to send a notification about it. It all boils down kind of to the way and kind of the size of the companies. The bigger organizations usually tend to kind of want to collocate this, use the Git flow as kind of the way to deploy new workflows, see their changes, specifically in regulated industries. And with some users, and this is actually something the team is actually working on right now, is the ability to say, hey, I just want something simple, give me the UI capabilities. And maybe when I come to this a bit more of a complex workflows, I would love to use the code to actually create them. So this is something that we are planning to ship quite soon, and basically the ability to kind of have really the best of both worlds, right? So you can create something in the UI and then say, hey, we need this particular workflow to be, it's data rich, we want it to be controlled in a more stricter way. And this is where you can basically eject and have your own runtime engine that was be basically powering those specific notifications, while the others, you can keep them kind of by the default runner we are providing out of the box.
Yeah. And I maybe would like to, like, with the time that we have left, to go over another kind of, again, I'm still, because I had a lot of time to play with that, and you also been testing this a lot, I would like also to go over the new inbox that we have shipped some time ago. And yeah, right. And right now you actually can see here in the screen that Dima is sharing the playground, we basically decided to ship a playground to show how the inbox is actually looks like. So Dima, take it over, man.
Yeah, sure. So we are actually kind of two interesting projects we've been doing. Is the first one, and I think this one we already discussed this previously, and this is the playground we have for the workflow definitions, right? And this is available under our dashboard. So you can basically have in-browser experience of previewing how everything will work. This is basically exactly the same thing we've just been through kind of throughout the whole process. So you can just use it from the browser itself, which is quite neat.
How to navigate to this from for example from the Novo dashboard?
Yeah, so there is a button on the getting started page, visit playground, so you can just use it, or just /playground.
And if I remember correctly, it works mainly on Chrome, right?
It's Chrome based. It's using basically behind the scenes is the StackBlitz engine, so anything that is supported by them is also supported here, and it's kind of the Chrome based browsers, I think, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And the inbox.novo.co, which is another exciting playground, which is dedicated only to the notification center component we've recently released. So kind of all the focus goes here for the inbox component, kind of to get a sense of how it works. So we actually replicated quite common notification center experiences, and we're planning to extend this. So, like get the Notion inbox feel, which is kind of the sidebar, or you can use the more of a Reddit-based kind of look and feel of it. Or we can have our default. This is basically what comes out of the box, a fully functional component, currently supported for React. We are planning, I think we already released the hooks mechanism, so you can create your own custom user interfaces. And everything here is kind of an out of the box. You get the user preferences, you get the actual functionality for things like seen, unseen, show me the archive notifications and so on. And you can also customize it. And let's say we want it to be pink, or we want the, to change some colors or backgrounds, or I can hide or show it.
One of the cool things in this playground is also the fact that you can actually send a notification and to see and feel how it will be sent into the inbox component, just like Dima here did now. So we have a new notification. It's instantly listening to all the events that happening in the backend. And if you want to basically customize your own inbox, it's fairly easy. The team, they share this. I think again in a hindsight, but they share it. They share the high level of the customization appearance variables that we basically exposed to made a very kind of surface-ish level changes, but you also can modify basically anything. And it comes with the inbox could be separated, the preferences could be separated, the what else do we have there? Basically everything can be separated. Right?
All things. We actually released a cool blog. I think it was. Oh no, it's not this one.
Oh no.
Maybe I'll find it.
The cursed 404.
Let's say dev2.novo. Oh, okay. Thank you. We actually released kind of the behind the scenes blog post on dev2. Go check it out. The link here is in the chat. And basically what we have here is just an example of how we approach kind of the whole customization areas. And Emil, to your particular question, we do have, I think, 4 components: the bell, the inbox, the notifications themselves, and the preference component that is available for you to use. So there is a bit more detail here about the different layers of customizations you can do, including the kind of hooks and a bit more low-level implementations.
One of the exciting things that the team also shipped pretty recently, I think even in this week, is the support of React hooks, which you also can find in this particular blog post at the bottom, where what it means is actually that right now we can generate the inbox component or the notifications, for example, in React Native notifications, or in React Native applications. And this is also one of the things that our team is working on, to deliver some sort of a demo app that will have the look and feel of how you could do it, and how you could just have a one code based where you import the inbox, the notifications into your app, very easily manageable. And the experience is just kind of, I don't know, it's really just delightful. Um, and you can do so much with it. And one of the things that we are keep on pushing towards is actually probably develop more themes. For example, for the inbox, like here we have the Notion theme. That's how we call it. No, Notion-ish theme. We have the Reddit one, and we're going to basically work and show how it will look and feel with some other very popular tools and apps that most of us use on a daily basis, to just see how what the extent, or at least kind of just to scratch your imaginations towards what you can do with the inbox behind the scenes, which what you can generate, what you can fetch in terms of notification, and how it all this kind of real-time activity happens out of the box. So this is really amazing. Dima, would you like to maybe add something to this? I'm not sure if I covered everything.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much it. There is a bunch of really cool stuff going to be released quite soon. The team is actively working on some really cool additions, specifically around the dashboard experience, kind of the and next office hours we're going to have a very special guest, and I'm going to leave it for you to follow us on Discord and Twitter to kind of to share a really cool announcement and a collaboration we are actually working on right now. And yeah, stay tuned. I think there is some really exciting things coming in the way.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, Dima, and this was amazing. So if anyone would like kind of go over again and see how Dima kind of went through the onboarding process on the initial kind of workflow configurations and syncing into the Novu dashboard, the cloud instance, make sure just, to first of all to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you can just revisit the recording. And like if you have any comments, questions, we are in Discord, we are on Twitter or X. I know that Dima is also much more active recently there, so he will definitely give you some sort of a comment back. So really, don't be shy. Let us know what you think. Help us really improve the overall notification experience. And thank you so much for coming. Have a good rest of the